So hello, everyone. So I'm going to try to do a session on some of our competencies, communications competencies, and I'm going to try to do this in 5 minutes. So I'm going to set the stopwatch, and it's going to start from now. So here goes. So the first thing that we're going to be talking about is media relations and how that goes. So media relations is really about the practice of how you manage the media, and it's a practice area. It's one of the aspects of core communications. And I just decided that, I don't know if you've seen any of my other videos, you see that I've done a video where I talked about the 12 competencies that you can have if you want to be a core communications practitioner. Media relations is one of them. I'll be doing short videos on all the others, but let's just see how this goes. So when you're a media relations practitioner, your job is essentially to manage the media on behalf of the organization or entity that you serve and you work for. And there are lots of things that you do in that process, but I'm just going to run through some of them just so that you have a sense of what it takes to be a media relations practitioner. So first of all, you have to be able to write press releases. Press releases are statements that you make on behalf of the company. They could be things that you did proactively. So something was coming up, a new announcement, production, a launch of a new product, or some sort of a new headquarters, a change of name, an acquisition, an investment, So the skill of a media relations manager is knowing what should go into that press release, how you put in just enough information to make it short, simple, and smart, and focus on what is most important for the audience to know and to hear. And also to make sure that whatever it is how you'd want the audience to feel about you, that is communicated well. And it's also distributed to the media houses, and that you get good coverage for it, and it shows up in the papers that you would want it to show up in. It takes a lot of relationship management and presence and understanding to deliver that, but that's just essentially it. And also what page does it end up being on? You see some companies whereby their stories are always on the front page, on the business page. It's all about relationships and understanding how the media works. Also, there's a difference between a story showing on a national newspaper as opposed to a local newspaper. What's your audience area, that kind of thing. So what's your media strategy as well? So that's where everything starts from. What are you trying to achieve? Who is your audience? What is the strategic purpose for that thing that you're doing? That should then inform your choice of media. Am I going to, like I said, is it TV? Is it radio? Is it owned media? Is it going to be a YouTube strategy? Is it going to be an online strategy? It all has to start from your audience, from your objective, what you want to achieve, who your audience is, therefore, what are their interests, what's the messaging, what do I want them to know, what do I want them to feel, what do I want them to do? And then you then map it. Where do I meet my audience, and how do I reach them? Now, media relationship management is when you talk about how do you manage the relationships around the media? So if you're dealing with the traditional media, for instance, and perhaps you want to do something on TV, how do you manage the relationships with those people? How do you make sure that your business is well portrayed on the media, and that you don't get negative press, and that even if there is a negative story coming out about you, the media make sure they call you, you get your own share of voice in it. That's all what happens in that media space. Also, how do you manage media response and inquiries? Do you have a no comment strategy? Do you just leave it for people to write anything they like about you? And even if issues come up, you don't have that culture whereby you are able to come up with response statements. So when you have a media relations manager, particularly if you're a mature brand, you need to have people who are experienced enough to be able to handle media inquiries for you and know how to say the right things and not make the matter worse. These are all things. Every media practitioner is also media trained, so they do know how to respond. They also have key messages and narratives that they have, so they know what to say and what not to say. All of that is in the practice area. I have just 5 minutes and I'm almost out of time. Media highlights, news review. This is something that you do. I think it helps a lot in organizations when you just do like a daily news highlight for your organization, and you show them what's topical in the nation, in politics, in economics, in security, as the case may be. Key things sent to your top management every day. If you're a comms practitioner, this gives you a lot of credibility. And then you also show them how the competitors are also showing up in the media as well. Typically, the media relations office does this. You should also be able to give early warning systems. So you should be scanning the newspapers at all points in time so people know if there's anything going on in your sector, in your country, in your nation, in your region, in your community, you should be the one to point it out. If every time other people are pointing out things that happen in the media before you, then you're really not playing in that media space. And every comms person should be doing this in some shape or form or the other. I have just a few minutes left. So public events, that's really managing events here. And I think I'll allow myself to run a bit. Yeah, that's my, so okay. So you have public events. Public events is when so let me run this clock again and see how far I can go on this. So public events is when you then have things going on and then you manage the media as well. And how you manage the media with those public events are also key. Issues and crisis management is when you are involved with issues that come up and then how do you manage the media around that? What's the media strategy? If you're a comms person, you should stay very close to that situation and make sure that your organization is able to respond in the best way. In fact, most of issues and crisis management, the media plays a central role, either in making sure that that's coverage, that issue does not escalate in the media, or by de-escalating it in the media, resolving it and ensuring that what you have done is also communicated if necessary. But just making sure that you don't ignite a fire. Managing that whole space in the media, that's the job of the media relations manager and the people who handle media relations. Making sure that your organization has a strong media profile in the media, that's also important. Depending on the nature of your brand, if you are publicly quoted, you know that you need to have a presence out there. You're in a mature sector, you need to be visible. You need to take some thought to think about how you can make your senior leaders or your brand or your organization a bit more visible in the media space, particularly just making sure that they are at par at least with their peers in the sector. You don't want to be too far behind. So if your sector, people in your sector are visible, then you should also try to be competitive in that space in terms of media profile, at least your senior leaders. Media training, you need to get your senior leaders media trained. That means that they should be able to answer questions if they happen to be ambushed by a journalist, although your job is to make sure that that never happens, but that they're able to know what to say and what not to say at any point in time. You take them through that training. There's a very detailed training that can be done for senior leaders. It's also something that we do. Externals, so we take them through like how to stand before a panel, ask questions, Q&A with cameras in your face with journalists, and also that sort of thing that happens also in a more in a live recording TV where you can't go over what you said. That's training that can be done. It's a full day thing. Then external stakeholder management is really about how you just manage that whole space using the media. So sometimes you respond to your stakeholders or you manage your public image through the media. It's not the go-to way, but I mean, there's some statements that you need to issue to a broad section of people that you may now decide whether it to be a radio announcement. There's some announcements that should go on radio, there's some that should go on TV, and then your choice of which station, where there are like hundreds of stations. So you really, to be able to work in the media relations space, you really need to have an understanding of how both traditional media and social media works. And you have to understand what your business objective is and how you can then use those mediums, integrate them and use them to get the best possible outcome. But it's not possible for you to manage that medium if you do not know what it entails. So that's it. I tried to do it in 5 minutes, but I've done it in 7. Thank you for listening. I hope this has been great fun for you. Thanks.